In eastern Ukraine, the crisis deepened. As Russia 2019's summer offensive reshaped the conflict, the town of Pokrovsk stood at risk of encirclement, while evacuations of wounded soldiers grew ever more difficult under the watch of Russian drones. Recent gains by Moscow created multiple crises for Kyiv. A manpower shortage, mounting battlefield losses, and uncertain supplies of weaponry. The situation was made worse by strained relations between Ukraine and the Trump White House, leaving Ukraine anxious about the reliability of its most powerful ally. As the front lines wavered, Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly called for peace in Ukraine. He spoke of a desire for lasting stability, but his words carried little substance. No concessions were offered, and peace talks collapsed within an hour, producing nothing but limited prisoner exchanges. Meanwhile, Russian strikes on Kyiv killed 31 civilians and wounded more than 150, including children. Ukraine dismissed Putin's peace overtures as hollow, accusing Moscow of sending low-level delegations while intensifying attacks. President Volodymyr Zelensky signaled a willingness to meet Putin one-on-one, provided that neutral mediators such as Donald Trump or Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan could oversee the exchange. Then came in a new twist. Former US President Donald Trump announced that he would host a summit with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. The move alarmed Kyiv and many in Europe. Reports suggested the Kremlin would use the summit to push for territorial concessions, reviving uneasy memories of land deals from the past. Commentators even drew comparisons to the historic sale of Alaska, warning that any modern arrangement could see Ukraine forced to cede towns under pressure. For Kyiv, the fear was that diplomacy might become a cover for legitimizing Russia's battlefield gains. Ahead of the Alaska meeting, Zelensky issued urgent appeals to allies. He warned that no decisions should be made without Ukraine's consent, and he urged partners to pursue sustainable peace without sacrificing Ukrainian land. In Britain, representatives from the United States, the United Nations, and the United Kingdom gathered to align their views before the summit. Their stated goal was unity to avoid divisions that could be exploited by Moscow. Europe's major leaders also weighed in. In a stern warning to Trump, the heads of France, Germany, Italy, Poland, the United Kingdom, Finland, and the European Commission jointly insisted that international borders must not be changed by force. They emphasized that any diplomatic solution should protect both Ukraine's sovereignty and Europe's vital security interests. Their statement came in response to Trump's earlier suggestion of swapping territories to benefit both sides, an idea the Europeans flatly rejected. At the same time, Zelensky used social media to warn against capitulating to Putin's demands. He stressed that Ukraine had to be part of every discussion. On the ground, both armies claimed new gains. Ukraine said it had struck a Russian missile facility inside Russia and captured a village in Donetsk. Moscow struck back with deadly retaliation. Amid these developments, a new report from Germany's Kiel Institute showed Europe outpacing the United States in arms procurement for Ukraine. European nations expanded production lines and signed contracts for weapons and ammunition, while Washington under Trump increasingly shifted towards selling rather than donating. All this unfolded as Russia's troops continued small-scale infiltrations, testing Ukraine's fragile defenses. Commanders near Pokrovsk warned that Russia's thousand cuts tactic, repeated thrusts by small groups, threatened to overwhelm exhausted Ukrainian units. And finally, back in Washington, Trump made a dramatic announcement at the Kennedy Center. He said he would host this year's honors ceremony himself. But the real headlines came afterward, when he threatened Putin with severe consequences if no ceasefire was reached. He floated the idea of a trilateral summit with Zelensky, extended federal control of the DC police, criticized Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, and won a federal court ruling allowing his administration to cut billions in foreign aid. What began as local battles on the steppe of eastern Ukraine had now become a global contest of arms, of diplomacy, and of political will. The choices of leaders in Washington, Moscow, and Kiev would determine not only the fate of Ukraine, but the stability of the international order itself.